Danny Watson and Leah Parnapa. Magic Talk.
At 3:22, we've talked a little bit about this during the show. There's a woman in Wellington. She's penned a lengthy guide on how to get away with being the other woman in an affair. It was born from her own experience of sleeping with a married co-worker several years ago. Now she's brought out her tips that include how to hide expenses and communication, along with advice on where, and reading verbatim, how to have sex in a car, of all things.
I didn't think you need a manual for that.
No, I thought you just...
That's okay.
Is it in the car manual? Her name's Jessica, not her real name. She goes on to say how she met this person at work, and then they ended up having an affair for 3 years, actually.
That's a marriage by...
It does sound,
3 years you're in a relationship.
She was 3 years with this guy.
Wow.
And then she goes on to tips and tricks, which include don't go into it thinking that this is going to be a proper relationship. He is not going to leave his wife for you. There's all sorts of things that she's come up with. I mean, however you feel about affairs,
they happen.
They happen, and she has written her guide, I suppose, of how to get through it. But look, joining us to talk more about relationships and yes, they can be affairs, is relationship therapist Margot Regan. Margot, kia ora, good to talk to you again.
Kia ora, Leah, good to chat with you too.
No.
Now, Margot, first of all, what does a relationship counsellor do? I mean, there's a lot of obvious stuff, but who do you deal with?
Well, in relation to affairs, actually all three people, but I guess the two that most commonly present in my office is the couple itself in crisis mode. With affairs, we often talk about the initial finding out about it. There's a crisis mode, there's an understanding phase, an unpacking it phase, and then there's a future vision way forward. But often, initially, a couple will present in crisis mode, or somebody that is having an affair that is conflicted between I love my wife, but I'm also getting some need fulfilled by this outside relationship. What do I do?
Margot, are some people more prone to looking outside of a relationship, or is that a fallacy?
I think that addiction is real. Addiction, compulsion addiction, it's not necessarily recognized in the DSM, but I think it can be a symptom of other issues, certainly. I think there's about 6 reasons I see in my office that people have affairs. Addiction is one, avoiding intimacy is another one. If I don't rely on you to fulfill all of my needs, then I'm not going to get hurt if you reject me in any way. There's avoiding conflict, where couples are afraid of discussing differences or accepting differences, recognizing that my partner is different from me in an affair, so it's easier for me to turn away from my relationship and go outside. There's other things like if there's something we call exit affairs, that if the relationship is over, rather than actually saying, look, I think we should amicably separate or transition into a different type of relationship, there's an engagement in self-sabotaging behavior, or being in such a way that you're the one that has to break up with me. I'm not going to be the bad person doing the breaking up and hurting you.
Margot, and if your needs aren't met in one relationship, you're going to get them met somewhere else. It's no different to a job or a hobby or anything else. I know that sounds horrible, but that's part of the truth of it. But how many couples get over it? I mean, obviously they come to you because they want to work it through. Others would just split up. But how many get through this?
I think the people that get through it come out stronger. They understand themselves more. They understand their partner more. How many couples get through it? The people that come want to work on it, or they wouldn't invest in it, and they wouldn't go through the pain of therapy. There is no hiding from intimacy in my counselling sessions. There is no hiding from conflict, from communication.
Margot, but no relationship do you get everything from. I mean, because there's no such thing as a perfect relationship. And as time goes on, if you look at, say, when you first meet someone and you can't keep your hands off them, and then 30, 40 years down the line, you're not going to be like that. But that doesn't mean you'll look somewhere else. I think that can be an excuse to have an affair just because you're not getting it regularly like you did with them 30 years ago. I mean, that's silly.
I think You've just highlighted the secret of a great relationship. It's understanding that we're all born perfectly imperfect. I'm never going to be perfect for my partner. My partner is never going to be perfect for me.
Yeah.
I remember a lovely aunt saying to me, relationships are like politics. And I said, hang on a minute, what do you mean? You know, I hate the opposition. Or she said, no. She said, think about this. She said, you know, when you vote for a political party and you really love them, they'll probably get about 80% right. And there's 20% you're really going to hate the decisions they make, but about 80%. I said, okay, what about relationships? She said, well, in a good relationship, it's going to go about 80% right. And there's 20% you're going to adjust or not like. But if it's only 50-50 or it's 60-40, you don't want to be there. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think commitment, once you commit for, this is somebody that I've made a decision, you know, nobody goes makes a commitment in a long-term relationship or a marriage to say, I'm going to have an affair. Like, you commit, this is the person that I want to be with. It's better or worse, you know, I love you. There's certain behaviours like domestic violence without, you know, saying, or active addiction.
Yes.
But other than that.
Very quickly, because we're getting a little bit out of time, Margot, but you did say something that compulsion and addiction, we're talking sex addiction, is not recognised in DSM. What's DSM?
So that's the Diagnostics and Statistics Manual. So coffee is an addiction.
Oh, yeah.
That's recognised in the DSM.
Yes.
But problematic alcohol uses, but not necessarily alcohol addiction or pornography addiction.
How bizarre.
How bizarre.
So coffee's seen as an addiction, but seems a little odd.
Now, there is problematic use is recognised of, say, substances, and there's 11 criteria that you tick off, and depending on the number of those, you can assess whether it's mild or severe.
Yeah. Okay.
Problematic use.
And of the relationships that do break up, so you've got this married couple, this other woman, the other woman breaks the relationship up, he runs away with the other woman. How often do they last?
Do you know what? You'd be surprised. Some of them have lasted.
Yes.
And have built very good, strong relationships. Again, I think it goes back to, what was the reason I left my partner? Was the relationship over anyway? Was it an exit affair?
Oh, an exit affair. I get it.
Well, you've raised a whole lot of things for people to talk about, Margot.
Thank you, Margot. Margot Regan, relationship counsellor.